While the world's economic giants like the US and China aim for single-digit growth, one small South American nation is exploding. We're not talking about a statistical blip. We're talking about a growth rate some forecasts could average 14% over the next 5 years. That's more than both superpowers combined. This is the story of how discovering over 11 billion barrels of oil is building the world's newest economic superpower from the ground up, and why this incredible wealth could either create a paradise or tear the nation apart. This is Guyana. Just a decade ago, it was one of the poorest countries in South America. A forgotten corner of the continent, its economy was a quiet mix of sugarcane, rice paddies, and a little gold mining. Today, it is, without a hint of exaggeration, the fastest growing economy on the planet. The story of how it got here is one of the most dramatic transformations in modern history. But the real story is what comes next. Because when a country of just 800,000 people suddenly finds itself sitting on one of the biggest oil discoveries this century, the world changes overnight. The question is, for better or for worse? To really get the sheer scale of what's happening in Guyana, you have to picture what it was like before 2015. Guyana was a nation often defined by what it didn't have. With a population smaller than many cities, it was a land of breathtaking natural beauty, but also of deep, persistent poverty. As recently as 2018, its entire national budget was a mere $1.3 billion. The unemployment rate was stuck around 14%, and nearly half the population was living in poverty. The economy limped along, dependent on the unpredictable prices of rice and sugar, plus some bauxite and gold. It was a model that hadn't changed in decades, and it caused a massive brain drain, with talented Guyanese leaving for better opportunities in the US, Canada, and the Caribbean. For generations, Guyana was a place of quiet struggle. Its GDP per capita was under $5,000, lagging far behind its neighbors. It was a country rich in culture and rainforests, but poor by almost every other measure. It was a nation waiting for a miracle. And then 120 miles off its coast in the deep Atlantic waters, that miracle struck. May 20th, 2015. That's the date that changed Guyana's destiny forever. On that day, American energy giant ExxonMobil, leading a partnership with Hess Corporation and China's CNOOC, announced they'd struck oil. They were drilling in a 6.6 million acre offshore block called Stabroek, and what they hit was beyond anyone's wildest dreams. This wasn't just some oil, it was a super basin. The first well, Liza 1, was just the start. In the years that followed, the discoveries kept coming: Ranger, Payara, Snook, Turbot, Longtail. The announcements almost became routine as the estimated reserves kept climbing from 3.2 billion barrels to 4 billion, then 10 billion, and now the official estimate is over 11 billion barrels of oil equivalent. And some think there's even more down there. To put that in perspective, that's more oil than some OPEC nations have. For a country with fewer than 1 million people, it was like winning the cosmic lottery. The first barrel was pumped in December 2019, flipping the switch on Guyana's new reality. In that moment, a tiny, agriculture-based economy was launched on a trajectory to become a global energy player. The trickle of oil money was about to become a flood. What happened next can only be described as an economic explosion. The stats are so wild they sound like typos. In 2022, Guyana's GDP grew by an astronomical 62.3%, the highest in the world. For comparison, the United States and China would be ecstatic with growth rates of 2% and 4.8%. The IMF expects Guyana's economy to grow by an average of 14% annually over the next 5 years. The effect on personal wealth is just as stunning. In 2018, Guyana's GDP per capita was around $4,979. By 2025, some projections show it could soar past $36,000, potentially making Guyana the country with the highest per capita income in South America. This growth is fueled by a torrent of black gold. Oil production started at zero and is now hitting around 900,000 barrels a day as of November 2025. With new projects coming online, that number is expected to exceed 1.2 million barrels per day by 2027. This will make Guyana the world's largest per capita oil producer, rocketing past heavyweights like Kuwait and Qatar. This translates directly into government cash. In 2025 alone, the government expects to take in around $2.5 billion from oil. By the end of the decade, that could swell to $10 billion a year. The national budget has already exploded from $1.3 billion in 2018 to over $5 billion in 2025. But this isn't just about spreadsheets and government reports. This new wealth is changing the country in ways you can see and feel. Drive through the capital, Georgetown, and you'll see a nation under construction. New hospitals, roads, bridges, and apartment buildings are rising everywhere. The government is pouring this money into ambitious projects. A massive gas-to-energy project aims to slash the country's painfully high electricity costs. Huge investments are being made in infrastructure to connect the coast with the vast, undeveloped interior. The money is also flowing directly to the people. The government has rolled out a suite of social programs, including bigger pensions, student scholarships, and direct cash transfers to households. Tuition at the University of Guyana is now free. For the first time, a generation of Guyanese can imagine a future of opportunity without having to leave home. The private sector is booming. ExxonMobil and its partners have invested billions, contracting hundreds of local suppliers and training thousands of Guyanese workers in the process. Today, Guyanese citizens make up 67% of the workforce in the oil and gas sector. A whole new ecosystem of businesses in hospitality, logistics, and services has sprung up to support the industry. But here's where the story gets complicated. For every nation like Norway that has used resource wealth to build a paradise, there's another like Venezuela or Angola that has fallen into corruption and chaos. This is the great fear hanging over Guyana, the resource curse. It's a depressingly common story. A sudden flood of oil money can be toxic. It can cause the local currency to become overvalued, killing off other exports like agriculture in a phenomenon known as Dutch disease. The old economy withers and the nation becomes totally dependent on the whims of the global oil market. Then there are the political risks. In a country with a history of ethnic divisions, the question of who gets the oil money is an explosive one. If the wealth isn't shared equitably, it could easily ignite social and political conflict. There are also big questions about the deal itself. Critics argue the agreement Guyana signed with ExxonMobil is way too generous to the oil giant, leaving too little for the Guyanese people, especially in the early years. Finally, this entire boom is happening under the shadow of a century-old border dispute with Venezuela, which claims the entire S.C.O.P.E region, the very territory where all this oil is being found. Guyana's leaders say they're well aware of these dangers. They're studying the successes and failures of other oil nations to try and find the right path. Their main weapon in this fight is the Natural Resource Fund, or NRF. This is Guyana's sovereign wealth fund, set up to manage the oil money with transparency and prevent it from overwhelming the local economy all at once. By late 2025, the fund held over $3.6 billion. Strict rules control how much money can be withdrawn each year for the national budget, with the rest saved and invested for future generations. The government's strategy is to use the oil money to build an economy that won't need oil money. They're investing heavily to diversify, pushing funds into modernizing agriculture, developing ecotourism, and boosting education and healthcare to create a skilled workforce for whatever comes next. The road ahead is full of traps. It will take incredible political discipline, sharp economic management, and a rock-solid commitment to transparency. Businesses still complain about bureaucracy. Inflation is a constant worry. But for the first time in its history, Guyana has the money to actually tackle these problems head-on. It has been handed a winning lottery ticket the size of a country. The discovery of over 11 billion barrels of oil offers a once-in-a-lifetime chance to build a prosperous, stable, and developed nation. They have the money, the resources, and the benefit of hindsight from watching other nations walk this path. They have a roadmap to avoid the mistakes of the past. History rhymes. Power rebrands. Stay inquisitive.